כן.
משאיר את המחשב שם, וכאשר אני רוצה להבין משהו, אני מעמיד את הזה.
אז בוא נתחיל שאני שם, ואז אני אוכל להעביר את זה. נראה לי זה יהיה הכי, אתה יודע, סייף. כן, ואז אני לא רחוקה מהקהל. יש לי, הכל בסדר. דאגו לי. אני אעמוד אולי מהצד, אתה יודע מה אני אעשה? כן? לא. רגע, אבל טעיתי כאן בזה. כן. It doesn't allow me.
ביוסר שלי, אין לך אישור לעשות שינויים שם. תתחיל לחיות עם זה.
Sorry. אז רגע, איך אני חוזרת למצגת? איך אני חוזרת למצגת?
תתחיל לפתוח את זה במחשב שלך, בטלפון שלך.
לא משנה, לא רע, אבל רק לחזור למצגת, עזוב, לא משנה, נשאיר את זה ככה. סלייד שואו, אוקיי, בסדר. אוקיי, בסדר.
אוקיי, חברים. So, עכשיו I tell Rabbi Marx, I have told you this in the past, and you denied any connection with this concept. But I did say to you several years ago that one of the most important lessons I learned in congregational management came from you. And you said to me, I don't do management. I said, one of the most important lessons I learned in congregational management came from you. You remember what that is? No. Because you're not really busy with management, but congregational rabbis, we do some management of stuff here and there, stuff with you, with A. And it's about time.
All right. Yeah.
You told me that if you control the calendar, if you control time, then you can shape a structure to work with. And if you want to bring people together, you need to be able to manage the calendar and realize that the first mitzvah that we are given as a people is the mitzvah of counting the months. And if you really want to be a people, somehow we need to align our timelines. We need to be able to celebrate, to acknowledge time together, to show up together. It is very symbolic that your book in English is called From Time to Time, which is about time, and it's about the beauty. You want to tell what the book is about? Because I will misrepresent, but I will say that it is a key to understand the Jewish calendar at a very, very profound level. Dalia Marx, Rabbi Marx is a phenomenal scholar, a phenomenal teacher, a very serious scholar in her scholarship. No, serious, I mean in your rigorous. Rigorous?
Rigor.
Hard, no. I mean, no, without jokes, a serious scholar, which basically means that she has methodology, she knows how she presents her sources in a very methodological way. And I think that one of the experiences of most of his students is that you get the idea at the end. You understand the beginning, the middle, and the end. And if you don't, I would encourage you to ask her. She'll be happy to tell you. And lastly, it is really a privilege to have you here at Shir Hadash, to have your book. One of the things that Jews in general struggle with is the understanding of time, what to do with time. And I think that your book is a fantastic contribution to the work and to understanding of time. So it was a big deal when this book got translated to English. I think it was first translated to German. And when it got what?
In Spanish.
So German, Spanish, and we English speakers were the last. So it is pretty cool that we have it in English. We have a few copies of the book if you are interested later on. And we encourage you, if you want to purchase a copy of the book later on, to let us know, and we might put another order together in community for a nice discount. And I will say that Rabbi Marx doesn't get any royalties for the purchase of the book. This is one of her contributions, generous contributions to our people. So with that being said, let's read some Torah, let's learn some Torah. Baruch haba.
תודה. אולי תעשה רשימה. Thank you very much, Rabbi Nico, for this too generous introduction. So nice to be with you, Rabbi Ilana and Cantor and Ellen and my cousin's son, Nir, made a surprise and came here. He's a professor at Stanford. And all of you, it's such a pleasure to be with you on this Shavuot night. This is a time of great difficulties, as we know. And it's time to build bridges, and it's time to be bridges, and this is part of the reason that I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. And this is also this project of this book from time to time. There are many books about Jewish festivals. Each one of them is special in their own way. My project was to bring many traditions from old and new, from east and west, from all kinds of ethnic groups within Judaism, often groups that we don't necessarily think about enough, like the Ethiopian Jews and other groups. And to bring all denominations. Doesn't mean that everything goes, right? I didn't include the, racist or chauvinist text, but I really try to be as open and as inclusive as possible, and especially what was in my mind is to bring women voices. Jewish female voices, because as I'm sure you know, I'm not saying anything that is unknown to all of you, our people is a very literate people. We are the people of the book, and yet the books until very, very recently were all composed by men, as far as we know at least, redacted by men, printed by men, distributed by men, learned by men, transmitted by men. Jewish women did not have formal education until quite recently, 18th century or 19th century in West Europe, 19th century in East Europe, and in the 20th century, about 47% of the women who came to the State of Israel from Eastern countries or North African countries were illiterate. So I think this is something that is very painful to me when I'm a professor of liturgy. That we have so many beautiful traditions and prayers and rituals and celebrations, and women had beautiful rituals and traditions and celebrations and prayers and supplications, but so many of them did not reach us because they were transmitted orally. They were not written. And I think this is maybe the task of our generation, to really mend these broken roots and to add our voice to the choir, to the beautiful choir of Jewish voices. So that basically was one of the things that I did. There are about 100 chapters in this book. Each one has to do with a different chag, a different festival, different designated time within Judaism. And what we're going to do today is basically explore one of them. One last thing that I want to say about this book is that it was published by the CCAR, Central Conference of American Rabbis, and on their website you can find a study guide for the book that one of our students composed. And each chapter you have all kinds of further questions and suggestions and activities, and really elaborating and opening the discussion to communal life, to family life, all kinds of this, to celebrate Jewish time together. And there is a Spotify playlist of all the songs that are mentioned there. I didn't make it, they made it so beautiful. And the last, and just before we delve into our topic today, you said Jews consider time and ask what time is. I would say human beings ask that. I think we all depend on time, right? When is it time to begin? When is it time to sleep? When is it time to go to work? We are very dependent on time, both the time that is measured by our calendars and watches, and also our internal clocks, right? When are we hungry and when we're tired, the fertility. There's many, many clocks within us. We don't really know how time works. And I would say maybe this is the human project to see if we can control time somehow. So today is, as you know, Shavuot, and when we discussed what to do, we thought, let's talk about the Book of Ruth, because both of us like it very much, and Rabbi Nico asked me for a title, and the title that came straight to my mind was The Bible's Most Unlikely Love Story, with 2 spelling mistakes. It has to be a capital letter, and sorry about that. I couldn't fix it here, but so forgive me. Let's talk a little bit about the Book of Ruth, and we will pause during this for moments of chevruta, for personal work. In terms of time, how much time do we have?
You are the master of time.
Ah, you see? Time is running, we have no time, time management. We always talk about time management. Who can really manage time between us?
We thought about having 90 minutes to allow for the time.
Very good. Okay, so 90 minutes and
People can drink and have their desserts.
very good. Let's do it this way. Very good. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Book of Ruth, but before we delve into the actual book, let's talk about the general context of the Book of Ruth. And in the Hebrew Bible, we see the Book of Ruth in the framework of what we call the 5 scrolls. By the way, that's how they appear in the Hebrew Bible. That's not how they appear in Christian Bibles, right? And the phrase 5 scrolls is a relatively later one. Yeah, we hear about it for the first time in medieval times. So what are the 5 scrolls? Esther, Ruth, Lamentations, Song of Songs, and no, Proverbs is not we said Esther, Kohelet. Right, exactly. So we have Shir Hashirim, or Song of Songs. We have Kohelet is Ecclesiastics. We have Ruth. We have Eicha, or Lamentations. We have Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. And we have the Book of Esther. And why did I write them in this order? I wrote them in this order because each one of them has a specific role in our liturgical calendar. Yes, each one of them is read in designated time in the Jewish year. Why do I have both, actually? I don't need that one. What do I do? Thank you. Okay, now I have free hands. So each one of the 5 scrolls has its own designated time. I would say that the most intimate connection between a scroll and a festival is the scroll of Esther. Thank you very much, because the story of Esther, in the story of Esther, it says, read me every year. Yeah, the story of Esther declares itself as a text that should be read. And we have a tractate in the Mishnah, and a tractate in the Tosefta, and a tractate in the both Talmudim that has to do with Megillah, scroll. And when we talk about scroll, we talk about Esther. The other festivals are somewhat the connection between the festival and the scroll, or as we call it in Hebrew, Megillah, is somehow less evident, but also very interesting. By the way, the word Megillah comes from liglol, to scroll. Right. So that Megillah. Okay. So let's see how it works. Shir Hashirim is read on Pesach. The Song of Songs is read on Pesach. Why? Springtime, love, birds are chirping, baby are born, the days are getting longer, nature comes back to life, right? Times of love and hormones, and this is exactly what you hear in Song of Songs, right? That's Pesach. On Shavuot, we read Ruth. And we will talk a little bit about that more in one of our chivrutas, why Shavuot is the designated time to read the Book of Ruth. Yeah, these 4 short chapters that reveal a beautiful, beautiful love story. Now, Eicha, Lamentations, is read on the 9th of Av, the saddest day within the Jewish calendar, the day we mark the destruction of both temples. And why is that? Because the book of Lamentations talk about the pending destruction of the temple, the first temple. So it makes sense. The next Megillah, the next scroll is Kohelet. We read Kohelet on Sukkot, and let me tell you right away, that's the last cookie in the jar. There was one festival that did not have a scroll, and there was one scroll that did not have a festival. And in Tractates of Rim in the Middle Ages, we hear about the other four and their marriage with a festival, and then someone thought, right, we have another one, which is Kohelet Ecclesiastes, and we have a festival that doesn't have a Megillah. Let's wed between them. But then some people said, it actually makes sense to read this scroll on Sukkot, because what happens on Sukkot? Agriculturally, right? And remember, most of our festivals have a very strong agricultural basis. Maybe they existed before the people of Israel marched on the map of the world, right? So Sukkot is the gathering of fruits, right? The farmer worked so hard harvesting the fruits, and now he or she sit at home. It's raining outside, and they can really rest and be relaxed. My barn is full with fruit. I can wait I'm okay. And then you have to read this very philosophically challenging text saying, actually everything is just wind, hevel, nothing. It's like it's vain. It's like nothing really means anything. Time later, okay? Time doesn't really mean anything. So that's why we read Kohelet. Of course, we could elaborate more on that, but we want to talk about Ruth. And then the last one is, as we said before, that's the most trivial or most obvious one. Esther is the story of Purim, and we read Esther on Purim. Now, if I think about the 5 scrolls, at least 4 of them have very, I would like to argue, strong and intimate connection to women experience. To female experience. And where is that? How do we see that? So 2 of these texts have the name of a woman and have women protagonists, right? Esther and Ruth. When we come to Eicha, to lamentation, the suffering of Jerusalem, the suffering of the city, just before its destruction, is depicted as the suffering of a woman suffering, right? Eicha yashva badad. How did she sit all alone? How was she betrayed? The city of Jerusalem is depicted as a woman, and also in the book of Lamentations, you have a lot of experiences of mothers who are doing terrible things because of hunger. I don't want to go there because it's really terrible, yeah? Consists of cannibalism and other things, yeah? That's lamentation. And what about Shir HaShirim? Shir HaShirim has, Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. Here we have a love story. We have a boy and we have a girl. They're in love. They meet, they don't meet. They have all kinds of feelings. And interestingly enough, we hear the voice of the girl, we hear the voice of the young woman very clearly, very loudly. She speaks. She talks about her emotions. She talks about her desires. She talks about her passion, about her sadness, about all her emotions. Where else in the Bible do we see people talk about their emotions, let alone a woman, right? Also, the boy is talking, but she has about almost double verses of the woman speaking than of the man. So you see, we have very strong women voice in the 4 of them. The fifth one, Ecclesiastes, he doesn't like women very much. just between us. So, so here we have the Queen Esther, and here we have Lillian's depiction of Ruth. This is a coin, a Roman coin from 2nd century Common Era, and it says Judea Capta, Judea captive. And you see the city of Jerusalem depicted as a woman, as a mourning woman, right? You see her sitting like this, and the Roman soldier with this triumphalist body gesture. And this is Gustav Miro with the Shir Hashirim. So this is just a general introduction to the 4 scrolls of the 5 scrolls. Each one of them has to do with a festival, and at least 4 of them has to do with women. Also, the 5th one has to do with women, but not in a positive way, maybe. Now, and this is something that I would like us to do in a Chevruta. Oh, I don't have the Chevruta thingy here. This is something that I would like us to talk in Chevruta. I would like to argue that these 2 books, the book of Esther that we read in Purim, the story of Esther, who saves her people from the plot of the anti-Semitic Haman who wanted to kill all the Jews, and the story of Ruth are in a conversation with each other. In a way, it's kind of yin and yang. Each one of them elaborates and illuminates the other. So maybe we can take, Nico, 5 minutes? 5 minutes to discuss in Chevruta. So find a study buddy. It can be someone you brought from home, a friend, and it can be someone you don't know. I want to encourage that. And talk about why and how Ruth and Esther are connected with each other, or in a conversation with each other. Or maybe they're not. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe they're just 2 separate stories that have nothing to do with each other. Okay? So let's take a few minutes for that. אני בסדר בינתיים?
תזכרי ששומעים אותך. חכי, איפה יש לך את המיקרופון? יש לך אותו בזה? אם את לוחצת על הזה... יש להם מה להגיד.
עצרתי את אלן, אם הייתי נותנת לו עכשיו, הוא היה לוקח את זה.
הלכתי להשתיק את הילדים של מביע.
חמודים.
זה הפליידייט של הילד שם. דווקא שהוא הולך לקהילה הקונסרבטיבית פה ליד.
יש לי. עכשיו, השאלה עם האיסוף, זה יכול עכשיו לקחת לי 15 שעה, ואני רוצה שזה יהיה 5 דקות, אז אני אעשה את זה כזה קצר.
באמת אף פעם לא חשבתי על הסיפור הזה של הסוטי שמנסה להסתתר ולרוץ החוצה, אסתר. ברור שכאילו יש כמה...
ממש ככה.
לא, אף פעם לא חשבתי על זה.
הפוך, ממש. זה. השיר. קלטת. One more minute, okay?
So we're talking, we're curious. What about Judith?
Oh, I could include, and sometimes I do, Judith and also Susanna.
I don't know.
Shoshana and the elders, right? So that's another. There are 4 books in Second Temple time that are named after women, but I didn't go to Judith because it will take me away from. No. You're absolutely right.
Judith also takes an action sort of independently or on her own accord that changes the face of people.
True. But you see, I decided not to go there because I want to focus on. I want to zoom in into. No, not sorry. This is great that you saw that. Okay, friends. What's between Ruth and Esther? Two nice Jewish women, two nice Jewish girls. Well, actually, one of them was not. What's between Ruth and Esther? Who wants to share? Let's take 2 or 3 opinions. What's between Ruth and Esther? Yes, please. Right. So we have the woman up front, but you have someone who's sort of guiding them behind the scenes. Great. What else? With yeah, right. So you're talking about two women who took decision in difficult times, in dangerous time. I hear you and I think about agency, right? People who had agency and acted. Thank you very much. Courage. Thank you very much.
They used both. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
both of them are using their feminine attraction to get what they need, and if yeah, and also we also spoke about the puppeteers. We have Mordechai and Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
That actually pushing the younger woman to do what they think they need to do.
Right. So both of them. So you agree with this group, and you also add to that that both of them use their feminine qualities or what have you, attributes to further their this. But you see what this is very interesting. Everything that you say, and I like it very much. But to me, and I think Rabbi Nico got it the minute I asked the question also, everything that was said is right. But to me, they are really two very opposite individuals. Think about Queen Esther. Esther was a nice Jewish girl. We hear her prodigy all the way from, she's a descendant of King Saul. Great dynasty. A nice Jewish girl with a nice Jewish name, which is Hadassah, right? That's why Hadassah is called Hadassah, right? But she doesn't call herself Hadassah. She calls herself Esther, which is a name that has a very strong pagan meaning, right? Ishtar, Ashtoret, right? The Mesopotamian deities, female deities. Esther doesn't do anything Jewish in the Megillah, right? She doesn't pray. She doesn't eat kosher. She doesn't give Shabbat. She doesn't nothing. All she does about her Jewishness is to hide her Jewishness. She fasts, but it's not a fast. It's a fast because she has to do a task, but it's not a fast that has to do with the year cycle or anything that is Jewish calendar related. Exactly, it does not relate. It becomes a Jewish tradition because of her, but she created it. Ruth, on the other hand, we don't hear about her prodigy. Who are her parents? Where did she come from? She's a Moabite woman. All we know about the Moabite is that they're not nice people. We don't want to marry them. We don't want to be in relationship with them. Yes, we don't know who she came from. The Midrash tells us all kinds of story, but if you read the story in the Bible, we don't know. And yet, Ruth is joining the Jewish people. She becomes part of the Jewish people. Where Esther marries the foreign god, Ruth makes a step and marries a Jewish boy, actually two, right? She marries twice. She marries one man and then she gets, he dies, she's widowed, and then she marries Boaz. And there when she becomes the great, who said that? The great grandmother of King David, yeah? Esther, with all her great dynasty, did she have any children? Biological or spiritual children? We don't know of any. And Ruth, we don't know who she comes from, but we know who were her descendants. When you read the book of Esther, all these conniving plots in the temple, in the palace, right? Someone wants to kill the king. Someone wants someone to bow before him. Someone doesn't want to bow because he has so much ego or whatever. And you have all these. It's a very, everything's very lavish. The textile and the clothing and the wine and the food and the festivity. Everything's very, lavish and big and grandiose. What do we hear about the book of Ruth? Nothing of that sort. Exactly, yeah. And the story happens in Judea, in the desert. Yeah. The people are working people. They work in the fields. They are simple people. They wake up in the morning and they work. But they make acts of chesed, of loving kindness to each other. Yes? They are faithful people. Adonai Machem, God, may God be with you, they say to each other. It's a very simple place. You can actually feel the sand of the Judean desert in your mouth. It's so very simple. These two stories stand, I would say, as when you juxtapose them, you have very different ideas of what does it mean to have a Jewish experience. And I think I would dare to say that Ruth comes on top when we compare between the two. I'm continuing, if it's okay, or if someone wants to say something. Okay. Let's see a few words from the scroll of Ruth. Just let's remember what's the story. We hear about a famine, a very difficult time in the town of Bethlehem. Drought, famine, hunger, which is kind of ironic because the name of the town is Beit Lechem, the house of bread. And a family from Judea leaves Judea and the family moves to Moab. We have a father, Elimelech, a mother, Naomi, and two boys, Machalon vechilion. The names are right. The names are difficult. So Naomi is a pleasant one. Naim, pleasant, right? Something that is pleasant, or yeah. But the children are Machalon, the sick one, yeah, sickly, and Kilion, someone whose end is near, or something like this. Yeah. So, who gives their children names like this? Anyway, what we hear about the story of this family, unfortunately, is very sad. The father passes away, the two boys pass away. The wives they took remain with the mother of the family. The wives are called Ruth and Orpah. Again, the names mean a lot, and Ruth has few meanings. I'll stick to one of them right now. Ruth can be meaning re'ut, right? Friendship. Or amistad, friendship, right? Ruth, if you sometimes you don't hear the ein in these names, so instead of re'ut, Ruth, the friend, the one who's close, dear to you. And Orpah maybe also has a few meanings, but the one meaning that is mostly associated with her name has to do with Oref. Oref is, I see some of you motion it. Oref is the back of our neck.
So for Reut, companionship.
Companionship, wonderful, 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 wonderful. So when Naomi hears that the famine ended in Judea and she wants to go back, she says to her daughters-in-law, please leave me alone. I will go back. You stay with your parents. Can someone read it in the words of the Torah, please? Do we have a volunteer? Toda.
And Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, turn back, each of you to her mother's house. May the Eternal deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me.
Right. So thank you very much. So they don't want to leave her. What do I hear here? They are willing to go to a land they don't know, to a place they don't know, to a different ethnic group, with a person that basically lost everything. This is not a very good career choice, if I may call it this way. Yeah? But what do we hear here? What do we have here? We hear love. We hear profound love of these two daughters-in-law with the mother-in-law. And I always think about it when people say that they have bad relationship with the mother-in-law. I loved my mother-in-law. Right, nice, mother-in-law, right? So, yes.
What choice do they have? At this time, to return to their home, the father's home, after they were married already.
Well, that's the normal choice. That's what you would do in antiquity if a marriage is terminated because of either divorce or death. That would be the default choice, to go back to your mother's home, to your parents' home. So here, they say no, we want to go with you. All right. So can someone read the following verses, please? Yes, please.
Now Naomi replied, "Turn back, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have I any more sons in my body who might be husbands for you? Turn back, my daughters."
And here I skipped a little because she says, even if I get married now, right? She becomes really Talmudic. If I get married now, and if I bear more children, are you going to wait for 20 years now till they can marry you? Right? So go. I have nothing to give you.
My lot is more bitter than yours, for the hand of the Eternal has struck out against me. They broke into weeping again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law farewell. But Ruth
Oh, we can see the clung to her.
clung to her.
Right. Yes. Thank you. It's yeah. And then Ruth says to her, can you read this?
Sure. Now Ruth replied, "Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you."
Right. So Ruth is really not willing to get a no for an answer. At a certain point, Ophrah leaves. And how can we understand the choice of Ruth and the choice of Orpah? Who of them was more faithful? Who of them were a better daughter? What do you think? I said a Chavruta moment, but maybe we can... Who of them were more faithful? All my life I thought Ruth she was persistent, she wouldn't give up, right? But now I'm thinking, maybe Orpah was a little bit more respectful, right? She told like, leave me alone, for crying out loud, and she leaves her alone, right? Maybe Orpah was a bit more sensitive to Naomi's feeling, but maybe Ruth was more sensitive because she knew that Naomi is in such a bad. Everything's okay over there? That Naomi is in such a bad state that she has to be with her. She cannot leave her alone. And we know that when they came to Judea, her neighbors did not recognize her. The people who knew her all her life, Naomi, they didn't recognize her. And she said to them, God has made bitter for me. I'm not Naomi, I'm not the pleasant one anymore. I'm the bitter one. My life has been bitter for me. She was in such a bad state that even her closest people could not identify her. I brought you a few artistic depictions because I always think that, we have the Midrash that takes the text and elaborate on it and expand it, but sometimes we have visual Midrashim. So this is a picture by William Blake. We normally think about William Blake as a poet, but he was also a painter. So what can we see here? What can you say about Naomi? What is she doing? Empty hands. That's it. I have nothing to give you. I'm giving up. I haven't, like, she gives up on her life, right? She what? Oh, there, I didn't notice it. Right, this is a Christian artist, so yeah, right. She has a halo. Nice.
It's a sacrificial kind of thing.
Say it again. All right, yeah.
In Christianity, she's like great grandmother of King David, but in Christianity, she's also the matriarch
Of,
of Jesus. So
of right,
Jesus
yeah.
is a direct
Descendant of her, right? So you say it's interesting. I didn't see it, but now that you say it, I cannot not see it. That that Naomi's gesture, her position is very much like a Mary kind. Yeah. So what can we say about Orpah here? She's crying. Maybe she's ashamed. Could be, yes, which we don't know about the circumstances, but she's going back, and you see how Ruth holds her, she clings to her, she hugs her with both hands, and she puts her head on her bosom. Yeah, she's like a very that's an act of love. I'm not sure a romantic love, but that's an act of love.
Can I offer a thought?
Sure,
So
please.
I'm looking at this picture. You first ask who is in a better moral place, right? Or in terms of responding to Naomi's request. Papa, who is actually respecting her will and leaving, or Ruth that actually sticks to her and she doesn't leave, despite the fact that it is supposed to. Of Ruth that actually does something that is opposed to Naomi's will. And I was thinking about what are the moments in life in which we are supposed to follow and respect the wishes of someone who is beloved to us, and what are the moments in which we say, I heard you, I'm not going to follow your instructions, right? And looking at this drawing, I thought about the idea of a Shabbat Avedah, of returning lost objects. And the Talmud asks at some point, what happens with someone who ivedet atzmo ladat, with someone who has lost himself, someone who was Naomi and becomes Mara. So what are you supposed to do with that individual? You're supposed to hold on to that individual until he returns to himself. And I think that this drawing pictures that very nicely.
Very nice. So Blake is really giving us that moment of really holding to that beautiful lost item, right? I have to cling to it until it can be claimed.
What about the fifth commandment? It's interesting. I was like, I'm thinking about it. You honor your parents. Okay,
She's a parent figure, of course. She's not a biological mother,
so
but
when your parent is saying something, and are you listening to parent? You doing what she said, or are you doing the kind of the opposite? Was here, and what is better to do?
exactly. So it's not so clear. Look what a beautiful story, and how much we can really open it up and understand it in so many different ways. Did Ruth did the right thing, not listening to her, not respecting her mother? Today we read the 10 Commandments. Yeah, this is the fifth commandment. Is she obeying the fifth commandment in a very special way, or is she neglecting it, disobeying to it? Yes, please.
When you first asked about the two, I thought in this painting, Orpah doesn't have the strength to do what Ruth can do because it's very hard. It's very hard what Ruth is trying to do. And some of us have taken care of elders. And it can be very, very hard in that same way.
Right. So she doesn't have it in her, Orpah, to do that. Yes, please.
The shape of the two daughters-in-law is similar. They're both bent over
Right.
Whereas Naomi is representing like emptiness.
Right. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you. You mentioned the Christian iconography, and that I didn't think about it until this very minute when I'm looking at this. Um, the Midrash, the rabbis, are very harsh to Orpah. They say all kinds of things, terrible, terrible things about her. Where did it come from? And when I look at these two female figures, that reminds me of a very prominent Christian iconography item, and that's ecclesia and synagoga. Where often they show the church and the synagogue as embodiment, women embodies the Christian. You know, there's a woman figure that is the church, and a woman figure that is the synagogue, ecclesia and synagoga. And the synagogue is, you can see it in many churches in Europe, right? The synagoga has her eyes covered because Jews are refusing to see the truth, right? Her staff is broken. She's bowing. And ecclesia is very proud. Her stature is very like this, right? So she's not proud. She's not standing up. But I'm looking at these two, and it brings me to my mind ecclesia and synagoga. Yes, please.
I'm okay. I see the bottom of her dress and it looks like
Wow.
waves. I see how she's kind of balling up her fist almost into her forehead, and she's got this tension about her, and also the motion of the waves almost seems like she's lost, like how to make a good decision. But she's standing in a very different way than Ruth, and it's, to me, signifies struggle.
Right. And the whole balance of the picture is shaken because she's standing on her own with this inner struggle that you see here, and as opposed to Ruth, who's holding her mother-in-law. Yes, please.
I don't know whether it strikes anybody else, but it looks to me like Naomi looks exactly like the Virgin Mary.
That's what. Yeah, that was said before. Absolutely. Here's another picture by the painter Jacob Volkema. It's in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. It's around the same time. What do we have here? It's a very different depiction of Ophrah and Ruth and Naomi. What do we have here? Do you see it well? Is it, yeah? She's what? She's better off.
She's really not, because all three have become widows. The mother-in-law and the two daughter-in-laws, because her husband and sons all died.
Right, but what's different if you compare between these two? You said that maybe she's wealthier, but maybe there's something else about her that is different from Ruth. That would be Ruth, right? We agree about that. Yes, please.
I know we don't know about their origin, but let's say Ruth came from a very beaten down family, and she doesn't want to go back there. And the other one says, oh, might be all right for me. Yeah, come on.
Look at her physical gesture, right? She's like, exactly. Yeah, she's much more exposed, right? You can see her arms. You can see her head, which is done in a very beautiful, braidy things. Right? So she's going back. You see the palaces of Moab. She's going back, and Ruth is very different. She has her head cover. She wears something that is very, I think, simple, and she's just with her hand on her mother-in-law's shoulder. Right? It's a different phase.
She also has a staff.
She has a staff. Right, right, right. Right. Yeah. She's getting ready to cross the desert, right? She's like, she means business.
And I think it's an interesting choice by the artist to not show a face to our palm. Thinking about the concept of face and dignity and honor, right? She doesn't get those. So that's kind of one aspect of this. And you can't tell that she's experiencing famine at all. Right?
No,
So
no.
it's kind of
Her arms are like, yeah, and that has to do with her name, right? Because her name is Orpa, which means the back of your neck. You don't see her face, and what does it mean that we cannot see her face? Thank you very much. Yes.
I have a sense here that Ruth is the stronger one. Naomi is bent over, and Ruth is supporting Naomi, and Brad, and then the other one, Naomi was supporting Ruth very much.
Yeah. So in the other one, Ruth was like hanging to Naomi, and here this is a different thing. Thank you very much. But look, who is Naomi facing here? Naomi is facing Orpa, not Ruth. Yes. Right. And both depictions are true, right? So you see, this is a story with so few words, but so many interpretations are possible. I brought you another one, and this is based on a Louis Hector Lerox's picture, but it was printed on a postcard in the 40s in Israel. It was a company called Lebanon, and I don't think they got the royalties or whatever. I don't think it was any process done, but they kind of did a reproduction of these large pictures on postcards. And this is one of the original postcards. What do we have here? Very different picture. What is going on? What? So first of all, Orpa is freedom. Yes, freedom. She's leaving. Okay. Yeah. What do we have here? What's going on?
Naomi is so strong, and she's like a man.
She's a bit masculine, right? She has a very strong physical, she's very, yeah.
Very erotic.
And it's very, very erotic, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of queer interpretation of the Book of Ruth, that is actually talk about love story between women, right? It talks about an alternative family, right? Instead of husband and wife, we have a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Whether it is a romantic love or whether it's just motherly love or what have you, this is an alternative family. But here, look at Ruth. She's so very seductive. She's very sexualized. That it's also he passed away in exactly in 1900. So he yeah.
It looks like the picture, one picture of woman power of like Ruth. It's masculine, like she.
Naomi is masculine.
Ruth,
Who's that?
that's Naomi.
So she's masculine?
Muscular, muscular.
Ah, muscular. In terms of
Yeah, beautiful, but also with lots of strength.
yes,
She's like a picture of a woman power. Like
right. Yeah, empowerment of women.
There's a certain kind of youth in this picture. I think it impresses us as like a
Hmm. So Naomi doesn't hug her. Oh, she does hug her back. She does. She has her arm around her, and she looks at her, but she looks at her from like this. Not, yeah. Interesting. Ellen, please.
So I'm wrestling with several of these paintings because the image I want to find is the uncertainty or the risk that Ruth is experiencing at the time of the event. But these paintings and us, we've read the stories, we know how it turns out. And so there's a missing part, or maybe it's there, but I'm trying to imagine the uncertainty that Ruth experiences when she makes the decision to follow Naomi.
Right, right. It's not very clear from this picture. Absolutely. Rabbi.
And counter to that, as someone who works with a lot of teenagers, there's a great deal of impulsivity about right? It's sort of like, all right, we're doing it. Joining this alternate family. And I think that's actually like well represented here.
Right, right.
It seems to me when I think about like a mid-late teens young woman, one of the first things I think of is someone being like, where you go, I go. Like, let's go. Like,
Right, right, right.
that seems totally plausible.
However, we know she wasn't a teenager because she was married at least 10 years, so she was not a very young woman. Yeah, going back to that. Yes, you, and then we can continue. None of them had children. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. None of them had children. That is to say, Naomi comes back alone. She buried her husband, she buried her children, and she does not have any other. Yes, her sons. Naomi. They didn't have children. That's part of the right, and that's how it ends. Also, we will see that in a second. The last.
I have a question. In that one, it looks like they're dressed in a Roman style.
Well, art history. They always depicted the biblical figures according to their own fashion and own style, right? But this, I would say, kind of Orientalist understanding of how they probably were, right? Because that's not a 19th century either. It's not a biblical time, but not that too. So the last one is from a contemporary young Israeli artist whose life project is to photo all the characters, all the female characters in the Bible, dressed in beautiful clothes on the scenery of the Golan Heights. Yeah, so the story happens in Judea, which is very different, but she depicts it in the Golan Heights. Who do we have here? What do we have here? Who's that? All right, who's that? I'm not sure. Are you sure? I don't know. This is Ruth, and this is Naomi. Okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. She's older and she sits, yeah. So what can we say about the relationship here?
I mean, she left, Orpah left, and it looks like Orpah is looking behind, and those two are not even.
They're in their own world. She's not part of this. That's it. She's gone, but from her perspective, she looks at them, right? Maybe she felt shunned. Maybe there was some sort of coalition between these two women, and she felt that she's not part of the party.
And why is she in color?
Right. She has a.
They're in black.
So they wear the same clothes, the same color, and she's wearing green, which kind of in conversation with the.
Dresses and they left her out.
That's exactly why, because I think the other story Rabbi Nico just said, right? That she's on the market. she's
Right.
wearing a very nice
Dress, yeah, yeah.
She's ready to remarry.
What can we say about the relationship between these? Yes, please.
Naomi is now the one that's suffering, and we get the agony from her, and Ruth is more the mature person. It's not like, I'll take care of you.
What's with this hand here? What's happening? She's like, get up, we're going. I'll help you. right? Is that Ruth, as you say, is suffering? She's tired. She's sitting. She's in despair, and Ruth is in a much more, as opposed to the first picture we saw, in a much more, she's taking care of her. She's she's a caregiver in this picture. Did you want to say something?
I just seemed like the hand is less of a pull and more of just like a comfort.
Ah, so you don't see her like, pulling her, but it's more like,
Like I'm here for you.
I'm holding your hand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One other, just to me, when I looked at it, I thought to me like Orpa's looking back like she's saying, "Are you coming?"
Like Ruth, supper's waiting.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Nice. Yeah, I like what she does. This woman, Declan, because she really took upon herself. Every woman who's mentioned in the Bible is gonna get a picture like this. Okay. So that was like a little chevuta moment that I wanted to do. But can we continue? Because I see time is okay. So yes, we read that Ruth said to Naomi, I'm not leaving. Yeah, I'm staying. I'm staying. And then she says the following. Who can please read it? I would say that these two verses are probably some of the most beautiful verses in the entire Hebrew Bible, or maybe in the entire Western culture, if I may call it this way. You want to read the Hebrew? I read the Hebrew? I read the Hebrew. ותאמר רות, אל תפגעי בי לעוזבך, לשוב מאחרייך, כי אל אשר תלכי אלך, ובאשר תליני אלין. עמך עמי, ואלוהיך אלוהי. באשר תמותי אמות, ושם אקבר. כה יעשה אדוני לי וכה יוסיף, כי המוות יפריד ביני ובינך. Very strong. Now in English. Who's willing to read the English? Please. Can you see it from that far? I envy you. Okay.
Now Ruth replied, "Not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more may the Eternal do to me. Only death shall part me from you."
Thank you very much. So what did we just read? What's going on here? What is this speech? What? It's like in a way it's like betrothal. It's like yes, absolutely. What else?
This woman is a very spiritual, holy, understands the world beyond just having company by staying with her mother-in-law. It's not a matter of room and board.
Mm-hmm.
It's appreciation of the way in which we can, which we could use as a model that we
Right.
should look at
Absolutely.
our lives.
Yes.
Not necessarily in the individual relationship of the mother-in-law, but in terms of these words.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Yes, please.
I had this flash of the little bit I know about kind of more ancient Indian rituals where the wife was expected to join her husband on the pyre when if she lost her husband in India, the wife was supposed to die with him.
The sati.
That-
The sati. Yes.
And it made me think along those lines, the fealty to the death, and wondering kind of.
Wow, really? Oh my God. I was thinking about life mostly, but I hear you. Yes, please, and then Rabbi.
I just want to share that I heard this sung by when I was a child, a beautiful piece of music, very American style soprano.
Oh,
Didn't sound Hebrew at all, but when I was a little girl, the phrase that stayed with me was "Your people shall be my people."
yes, yes, yes. That's how that's how she began, right? Your people shall be my people, right? Before we talk about theology, it's about belonging to the
It
same
felt
people.
like really bigger than
Hmm.
two people.
Yes, yes. This is a much bigger thing than just relationship between two people. Very nice, Rabbi.
I think of this always as like a conversion. You like this is the moment with a statement. Someone succinctly identifies like what it takes to say like I am joining a people, and so I always think that this is like the prime example of conversion.
Right, and indeed, you didn't see it probably, but indeed I call her the perfect convert. That's the perfect conversion to me, right? However, I think in the state of Israel, she would be probably, I don't know if they would convert her, they would probably harass her to pieces. And just as you said, it's an example. I feel like writing these two verses on a huge, thing and stand in front of the chief rabbinate in Israel and say, why are you harassing these people who want to become Jews? Why do you give them such hard time? Yes? Here you see a person who want to join. They want to join because they love, because they want, because they feel part of. Why do we need to give these people so much agony?
On the other hand, like the vocabulary is so powerful, right? You have the word lashuv, return, teshuvah. You have the word lalechet, alicha, alacha. There's so much. You have the people, you have the God component. So you have all of the, if you had Abraham Infield talking about the five-legged table, and I don't know, Mordechai Kaplan talking about the different components that make the Jewish civilization, they all appear here
Yes,
in different ways.
absolutely. It's
including the land of Israel.
very short statement that has so much. Yes.
So, first of all, isn't Hebrew so efficient?
Well.
A meth of me.
Yeah.
I mean, how much English do you need for that?
Wow. True.
But secondly,
Yeah.
this is Ruth telling Naomi. Like, imagine Naomi. Imagine yourself, somebody coming to you and saying, guess what? We're together now for the rest of our lives.
We're in it together. That's it.
Like, what? Naomi has no say in this?
Yes.
I think she really tries to go with Nomi. She really tries.
Right. She does what it takes.
She does everything, all to convince Nomi, I will be with you. Don't, just take me with you.
Yes.
I think she really afraid to stay.
Yeah. Maybe she's afraid. No, maybe that's part of it. Cantor?
I was just going to say, well, I mean, I comment a lot of things from the trope, and the trope is so beautiful.
Do you want to?
I can share a little bit, yeah.
Sure, go ahead. But in the meantime, while you find it, you got it. Okay, go ahead.
Safari is a wonderful thing.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Toda raba. You wanted to say something, yes?
So, what occurs to me is that this statement sounds an awful lot like covenant to me. And so
Absolutely.
maybe the parallels here with Shavuot is receiving Torah is the moment of covenant for the people of Israel. And that this is
No, you got it. You got it. No. Yeah.
Now you're going to introduce.
Do I keep going?
Yeah, please.
So the parallel here is the moment of covenant, and that's why this is so appropriately read on Shavuot, because myself, like Ruth, had a moment of covenant, and this is the Shavuot moment for Ruth as well.
Right.
So I think these parallels are very apropos.
So true and so beautiful. We if you remember, we looked at the five scrolls, and so we saw the connection between each scroll and each a festival, and we left Shavuot aside. And here you bring us the story of the covenant, because Shavuot is the festival of the covenant. Yes, we are married with God, as it were, right? If Pesach was our betrothal, yeah, the commitment between each other, and that's the love and the butterflies in the stomach and all that. Shavuot is the marriage, is a serious relationship. That's what it is. That's the covenant. And what is the meaning of Shavuot? The reception of the Torah, which in many of our rabbinic writings is considered the ketubah, the marriage certificate between God and the people of Israel. That's the Torah, which is also a scroll, and you identify it in this statement, absolutely. So in a way, Ruth receives her Torah individually, privately. Yeah, she receives her own personal Sinai in that. Yeah, and in a way, everyone who chooses, elects to become a Jew, has his or her or their own Torah or own Sinai moment. So that's what we have here. Yes, please.
When you made the reference to being married to God, is the origin of the song L'cha Dodi and the bride have a connection to
Absolutely.
well?
Yes, that's also that's also a kind of a marriage. Well, that will take us a little bit to a different place, but maybe we can say that the Shabbat is the bride of Israel, or that Israel is the bride of God. There's a romantic triangle there. Go, next time you daven Shabbat, make sure you see who's marrying whom. That's more complicated than this text. But I want to. I highlighted a few sentences that I think basically tells the story, because Rabbi Nico was saying, it's a very short text, but everything is there. So I completely agree with you. And after Ruth is saying, no, don't leave me, don't leave me. Maybe she's, I don't know, has separation anxiety, what have you. But then comes the real material. Ki el asher telchi elech. I will go wherever you go. I'm with you. That's the partnership. Before anything else, I'm with you. I'm holding your hand. I'm with you. I'm not leaving you. Right? That's the one thing, the first thing. And then you have the sharing of life. Right? You were thinking about the sati, but I'm not sure that this is exactly what it is. That she says, when you die, I'll die too. But where you will die, where you will remain forever, for all eternities, I will also remain in that place. Yeah, this will be my place. And also, when you lodge, I will lodge. Basher talini alin. I will do what you do. Right? So that's maybe the second layer. The next layer, and I think that's some of you saw how you spoke about it, David, how powerful this statement is. Amech ami, your people shall be, or is, or will be my people. Right? This is not just an interpersonal thing. This is not just me, Ruth, and you, Naomi. This is you as an embodiment of a people. And I am part of that. I am part of everything that you are. And only later, and this is something we need to tell the chief rabbinate in Israel, only there you have Elohai Elohai. Your God shall be my God. And here you have the theological conviction and the learned aspect of what it means to be a Jew or to become a Jew. First of all, you have the interpersonal thing, right? Why do people convert? For many reasons. But many of people convert because of relationship or because of feeling belonging. How many times did I hear people Jews by choice, who said, I always felt Jewish, so I converted. Or I fell in love with a Jewish person, so I converted. Yes, please.
For it to go that way, to me, only in a woman's story does it go that way.
All right. Explain.
Where you go, I go. Where you lodge, I lodge. Your people, my people. And your God, my God.
You say if it was a man, maybe the order would be somewhat different, or the content?
It just struck me, and I'm saying it, but I didn't think it through, so that's what came out.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Can I tell you something she said? I actually think about in the gender context of this, and going back to the picture in which Naomi is almost portrayed as a man, and that kind of there's a component here of submission, like of submission, like saying, where are you going? Whatever you drink, I'll drink. Like they say, there's an abolition of the self to some extent in order to create a we.
So I definitely think, Rabbi Nico,
Sorry, Kristen.
I definitely think that it
We
can
self.
be. Sorry?
Just for the people that are watching this.
I definitely believe that you can read it this way. That abolition of the self, I'm nothing, I'm with you. But I'm not sure it
I don't
necessarily.
think it's a bad abolition of the self. I think that there are moments in order to create relationships in which you need to put the she said, you just said that if it wasn't a woman, it wouldn't have gone that way. I think that very often, for sure, in how things are historically portrayed and were established, that's problematic when that is an expectation. But very often that was the expectation from women to be able to submit to whatever was what the male entity was bringing. And I don't think that that's a complete abolition of the self. It's part of how we enter a game of we, of
Right.
a covenantal thing.
Sure, I'm a little bit concerned about time, so I just want to make sure that do we have like 10, 12 more minutes? Are we okay with that? Yes? Okay, so it definitely can be read like this. It can be read like this in a somewhat negative way. It can be read like this as a somewhat positive thing. I would say the decision was there, and then the submission. So it really, the question is what comes first, and of course, depends what is the route that you are depicting here. That's really what it is. And the last, yes?
I would have never thought of submission for 1 second when I said that. Never. I was thinking about living life.
Okay. Right, yes. Yeah, yes, I agree. I tend to, I honestly don't, I wouldn't use the word submission, although I definitely can see how it can be understood this way, yeah? Each one of us that's the beauty of the biblical stories. Each one of us have her or his or their root, and Naomi and Orpah. The last thing that I wanted to show here is Vesham Ekaver, there shall I be buried. So it's not only in this life, it's for all eternities. Yeah, after 120. Yeah, because what? Only death shall part between me and from you. This is the bond that I see, says Ruth, is something that is for life. I'm going back to Esther and Ruth, a very different type of relationship, a very different type of story. Although we could, if we had more time, we could really delve more into it. We can say that both stories began with a man and ended with a man, right? Here we have Mordechai. We begin with Mordechai and we end with Mordechai. After Esther does everything, that story ends with Mordechai. And the same with Ruth, yeah? We hear about a man who leaves Judea, that's Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, and it ends with David, right? But in the middle you have all these women and all these relationships. And this is a unique book in the sense that you have relationship between women. And I would like us to, if it's okay with you, to go to the end of the story. So the story is, it's 4 chapters, and I'm sure you know the story, but it's always nice to read it again. Ruth goes to the fields of Judea, and her job is to bring home food. Yeah, Naomi sends her That to me is a little bit, red flag a little bit here, because Naomi knows that it's not safe. Naomi knows that the woman alone, a young girl or a young woman alone in the field with no connections, is a dangerous and unsafe situation. And indeed, the boys there try to harass her, but thank God she goes to the field, and the Midrash says it's not just by a mistake, it was God ordained it, to the field of Boaz, and Boaz spreads his wings over her, and he makes sure that nobody harms her, nobody harasses her. He gives her extra food. And then Naomi sends her at night, when everybody is celebrating the end of harvest of wheat, and everybody is celebrating, she sends her to the cave where Boaz is asleep. Some sort of pimping a woman, sexual harassment, all kinds of things. I mean, Naomi here is somewhat dubious action, I have to say. So she sends her to where Boaz is sleeping, and Boaz wakes up in the middle of the night, and he sees someone's there, and it's Ruth, and then they talk. And I don't know what else they do. But honestly speaking, if you ask me, right, each one of us have our own Ruth, right, and Boaz. If you ask me, nothing happened there. Nothing sexual happened there, because Boaz was such an honest person. He wouldn't take advantage on a vulnerable woman in a situation like this. Right, so she's, as you said, this is sexual harassment. She's harassing him, but he doesn't, I think, but we don't know. I don't think he takes advantage on her. And then it continues on, and we're not going to go over all the details, but there was someone else who had the privilege to marry Ruth before him, and he kind of plays the cards in a way that he will marry her. And then we hear the following. Would someone read from the last chapter of Ruth these verses, please?
All the people at the gate and the elders answered, "May the Eternal make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built up the house of Israel. Prosper in Ephrathah and
Yes.
perpetuate your name in Bethlehem, and may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, through the offspring which the Eternal will give you by..."
This girl. Yes, thank you very much. I just watched it 2 days ago, the Fiddler on the Roof, right? May you be like Ruth and like Esther. So here Ruth herself received, thank you very much, this blessing, yeah? Well, actually, she's not receiving the blessing. Who's receiving the blessing? Boaz receiving the blessing, yeah? Yeah, yes. Yeah, okay, yeah, you see, I skipped a few words here for sake of space, but it's they say to Boaz, may God give this woman who comes to your home like Rachel and Leah. Yeah, and this is basically very much like the blessing we give to our children on Friday night, the blessing for the children when the children are girls. Right? May God place you like Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. I do Leah first, because Leah, as an older daughter, I make sure the older daughter gets the right treatment. Yeah, that's what we give to the girl. That's why I like to have a daughter-in-law, because I only have sons. I love them to pieces, but I don't have a daughter. So. For boys, we have a different blessing, right? May God place May God place you, or may God makes you like Ephraim and Manasseh, which are the first siblings in the history of the world. Who got along, didn't jealous, didn't kill each other, didn't do all these things. So here, they are not. Think about it. It's a very patriarchal world. So they're not blessing Ruth; they're blessing Boaz for that. Yes, and may you have a seed from that girl. Maybe you have offspring from that girl. And then it continues. That's the, yes?
So I'm struck by the fact that it says maybe like the house of Perez whom Tamar born in Judah, because the way that he came about was not, necessarily a kosher idea either.
Right. I try to skip that because I'm watching the clock, and I mean I'm not gonna sleep because for 8 months I don't sleep. So I'm happy to stay here until midnight, but I'm just worried about you. This is absolutely true. Uh, the reference to, I don't know how much we should go there. The reference to Peretz is striking because how Peretz was born. Peretz is a child of Judah, right? From the 12 tribes, one of the children of Jacob. And Judah had relationship with the widow of his children. His child was married to a woman called Tamar. Then this child died because of his sin. Then he wed her to his next son, and he also died. And then he didn't wed her to his third son, and Tamar disguised herself as a prostitute and have sex with Judah. She conceives, and she has a son. Like the Hebrew Bible has all these beautiful stories, right? She conceives. He wants to kill her because he hears that she's pregnant. Who did you fool around with? He didn't know that he was. And then she proves to him that he's the father, and he says, "Tzadka mimeni, she's right. I'm wrong. She's right." And she has two children, Peretz I forgot the name. Peretz Zerach Peretz, right? So Boaz is a descendant of Peretz. Yeah, so you already have in this family some sort of not entirely kosher relationship. But here you have a refinement of the story. The story of Ruth and Boaz, that's a refinement of the story. This is not about stealing someone's seed. Yeah, this is about a kosher wedding, right? But you're absolutely right that having the reference to Peretz is not a naive or benign one in this context. Yes.
But Ruth and Tamar, they both conceived. I mean, maybe she didn't conceive because you said nothing happened.
I don't know.
But she came to Boaz in the middle of the night.
But she weds her, right? Eventually they're married and there's a legitimate relationship. Maybe not in the beginning, but it ends up as a relationship. All right. I'm not going in. Tough crowd. Okay, so let us continue with the verses from Ruth and see how the Bible depicts this relationship and what comes next. Do we have a volunteer that's willing to read to us? All right, thank you very much. What do we have here? So Boaz marries Ruth, right? Now we have a legitimate relationship. And how do we hear about her pregnancy? God, the eternal, Adonai, gave her pregnancy. Okay. What's it? You tell me. I mean, it's not a very common way to describe pregnancy. Intervention, yes. You have intervention of God in case of women who have fertility issues. But you don't know. I mean, you don't know. That's the one thing I can say. I don't know. It doesn't say so. But it says that God gave her pregnancy, which is something I find interesting. And then the women speak to, not to the mother who gave birth. Who do they speak with? They speak to Naomi. And what do they say to Naomi? What do they say to Naomi? Blessed the Eternal has not withheld a redeemer from you today. This, she's the grandmother. But Ilana, you continue. I mean, let us. I know you know the story. I know you read it, right? But let's try to be a little bit structural, a little bit here. Is it okay? Thank you. Okay. I know you read the story. You're a rabbi. You're very, very learned. Thank you very much. So you're right. You're right that according to the Torah, Naomi is considered the mother of the child. Yes, it says so. The neighbors, the women around, they say to her, "V'haya lach lemeshiv nefesh." Yeah, may this child, will renew your life and sustain your old age. Yes, it's like that Ruth is a surrogate mother. She doesn't get to be the actual mother of this child. The child becomes the descendant of Naomi, right? This childless person, the person who lost all her relatives, and now she gets to be the mother of this child, right? And think about it. I don't know what do you make of it. I think it's yes.
I thought it was more technically that since Ruth had been married to her son who died, and Boaz actually by marrying Ruth and having a child with her is giving up his right to the child, so to speak. So it's, I thought it was. I always thought it was Ruth.
The Levirate marriage.
Ruth and her husband, who passed away, Naomi's son's child. So I didn't picture that Ruth was
Right. So technically, that was the case. Technically, that's a marriage that ends up without children. Then the next kin, right. So there was another next of kin, but he gave up his rights, and then it went to Boaz. So legally, that may be the case. Yes, but I think it goes even further than the strict legal thing. Yes, please. Yes, David.
Doesn't that kind of, this kind of explain in another way the covenant a few slides back?
Explain what you mean.
Because a few slides back, a bit earlier in the story, Ruth does say to Naomi that your people are my people, basically that I am yours.
Everything that is mine is actually yours.
Exactly. She actually gives herself to Ruth, to Naomi, and Naomi now comes back to her home, and everybody knows Naomi, and Naomi knows Boaz.
Right.
And this is how Naomi restores her, redeems herself, restores herself through Ruth.
Right. That's definitely the case. But I find it every time I get to this part in the story, I get a little bit sad. Yeah, I have to say, because I would say that Ruth dedicates her life to her mother-in-law, and now her child is taken from her to her mother-in-law. I would say, hey, this is my child, this is your grandmother, your grandchild. Let's raise him together. We are one family. Not like taking the child from the mother and passing it on to the grandmother.
I just would say that your interpretation is very literal, that I don't know where it says here that the child is actually going to be like removed from Ruth, and wouldn't, given the love that has been articulated and the devotion, the deepest kind of love, the covenant between them, that a grandmother's love of her grandchild
Mm-hmm. She may, yeah. So no, but you know what? Maybe if we read, because we had a little preview before time. So maybe if we read the next verses, it can. Would you read the next verses for us?
Naomi took the child and held it to her bosom. She became its foster mother. And the women, it takes a village though.
I'm all in.
And the women neighbors gave him a name, saying, "A son is born to Naomi."
Here, yeah. So that it cannot be more literal than that, right? Yes.
They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, father of David.
Right. Yes. So I completely agree with everything that was said. It takes a village and a grandmother love and a mother love. I can't wait to be a grandmother, really. But it's gonna take some time, I guess. But I guess it's not competing. But the way the Bible phrases it is very deliberate, I would say. So it kind of I think again, you don't need to buy my reading. This is just my reading. I feel that they're kind of objectifying Ruth a little bit. She's like a portable womb, yeah? Ruth cannot have children anymore. No.
Maybe this is how they're ensuring that we see that the offspring of Ruth are Jewish, because Ruth was not Jewish, and if it's passed on through the mother, and if Naomi becomes the mother, then there's no question that they're Jewish. Otherwise, King David's not Jewish.
Right. Interesting.
And that the whole vow thing established that she is Jewish.
She converted. Because
Right.
Shir
Maybe here this is the first time we hear about conversion, right? Because the concept of conversion is not known throughout most of the Hebrew Bible, and we know of many of our ancestors who married non-Jewish women, including Judah. Yeah, you mentioned Judah and Peretz, right? Judah had a child with Tamar. Tamar was not an Israelite. Their child Peretz is not Israelite. His descendant Ovad is not Israelite. So there are dubious roots all around. Yeah. But maybe this is the case. Yeah. That maybe that's the case. This is how the Bible solves the issue here. Thank you.
But these roots are like extra dubious because the Moab is the Ben Lot, right? So maybe this is like trying to distance from that genealogy and the events.
Right. Because Lot also had some dubious sexual relationship. Remember what happened with Lot? That his daughter thought the end of the world is here, no more men. So they made their father drunk and had sex with him, with their father, and conceived children. So maybe that's, yeah? You want to distance yourself from that. Thank you. Wonderful. Yes?
It's really not about who is mother and who is father. It's about the land, because what she's redeeming, it's not she redeems herself. She redeems the land that was belonging to her family too, and the land was belonging to Naomi's family. So by calling Naomi mother of this child, this
She can
child
own the land. Right. Right.
The case of the daughters of Zlotfal, once again,
Right.
but they fix. Can I ask you, Rabbi, like you don't like to talk about Ecclesiastes or Kohelet?
No, I like, but
And,
it's just,
but there's an entire thing in the book of Ecclesiastes about the last couple of verses that they seem that they were added later on to kosher it up and to add it to the Bible, and to some extent, if we have a lineage problem here because there's an agenda, so let's say that the minds at the time were happy with the idea that Hi, Kristen. The minds at the time were happy with the idea that Ruth converted the way that she converted, and the rabbis in the Talmud kosher that up and found a way to explain that basically when she was walking her way back, she was actually studying Jewish law, and Naomi made sure that she learned entire halacha, and now she's fine and she's totally kosher.
so they added the verses.
But there is a problem because she's a Moabite. And even though you're not supposed to remind Egeret Motzo, they cannot separate from the fact you are not supposed to remind Eger where he came from. they cannot get rid of the fact that she's a Moabite because it's like talking about the arch enemy. It's talking about like the thing that you never want to be.
Right.
And in this, by stating this couple of verses, is erased.
Right.
So I wonder
it's-
about a different voice.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely can be the case, and it also can be the case about redeeming the land. This is the but I think the way the story is remembered is really about relationship and how relationship work, and yeah. So we see again the women are taking the child, and the women are calling the child, giving the child his names. And so we have a very, as you said, a village, right? We have a whole female gathering who are really determining the story. Yes, please.
Is there some reason that maybe they did not think that Ruth was capable of taking care of the child?
I mean, only if you I don't know, but only if you follow this that she's a Moabite, and like
But that's not incapability. That is to say that rabbinical Judaism is incapable of dealing
with the
with that heritage, right? Like
right,
it's not the
right,
same thing.
right. I don't know. We don't have any hint about her personal mother skills. I don't know. So yes, please, and then you.
Is there any version that says Ruth died in childbirth?
No, no. But there is the midrash that says that Boaz had sexual relationship with Ruth and died after that. Yes. And once again, you don't want the father. The father is not around. It's a women's world. But that's a midrash. That's not part of the Bible. Yes, please.
I was going to say that Naomi would have been too old, and she would have been able to nurse a child because you do it right after you have a baby. That's when the milk comes in. And also the fact that she became the foster mother doesn't mean that Ruth wasn't really the mother. You can be like, feeling toward a child, and they were very close. So
Right. So this is the opinion that absolutely that it's not instead of the motherhood of Ruth, but it's an addition, like extended kind of motherhood. Absolutely, that can be. That can be. However, I read the words and I find them painful. I read them, and every time I read them, this beautiful story, I find it painful that this woman was so faithful, so loyal, so dedicated herself, and then you take the baby and you give it. Right. Okay. And then it ends with King David, right? That's the Hebrew Bible. In the Christian Bible, it ends with, as someone mentioned already, with Jesus. Yes.
A group of us met a few days ago here for Rosh Hadash, and we were talking about getting ready to receive and what we receive. And we considered the question, what would we today be as committed to as Ruth was to Naomi? What would we have that same level of commitment to? And the most interesting answer that came was to grandchildren.
Right.
So as you've been saying this, that's been ringing in my mind.
Yeah. So here you go. Yeah. Absolutely.
Love to have grandchildren, but some people who do have
Right.
that sense.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you can also say what are the boundaries, right? You're committed, you're loyal, you're faithful, you submit yourself in many ways, but do you have also boundaries? So that this all of this is question, but something that is so common to us. It's very important for me to say the fact that a person can become a Jew was not always the case, right? Was not always the case. You also see other examples about in the book of Ezra about his project to expel the foreign women and their children, right? Because they defile the holy seed, right? Thank God their project did not linger on, because very very fast you have the process of converting, and then it's not anymore about biology or race, if you want to call it this way. Yeah, it's more about choosing.
One question. Moses' wife wasn't Jewish.
No, she wasn't Jewish. Joseph's wife was not Jewish. Judah's wife was not Jewish.
But that's where it starts, the becoming the Jewish people. I mean, because
well, she's called Bitya in one of the last books. She's not called Bitya in Exodus. Right. Bat Paro, the daughter of Paro. Right, 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 yes. So there were different ways of joining the people back in the day. And many of our ancestors married non-Jewish women or non-Israelite women. Can I... What? Yes?
We're referring to this process that the Jewishness was passed from the father's side, not the mother's side, because that came later.
Mm-hmm.
And so this question about some of the examples, like maybe Joseph or
Right.
Moses,
Yeah.
wasn't controversial
Yeah.
in the biblical period.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the rules became.
That's true. That's changed in the Hellenistic time. That is
So
based on the mother.
you didn't have to convert. The mother didn't have to convert for the child to be Jewish.
Right, but still, they married people outside the flock, and what does it really mean? So absolutely, you're right that the identity was determined according to the father until it was switched to the mother. So we didn't have a chevruta moment, but if it's okay with you, I would like to end with a kavanah, with a meditation. Maybe we can pass these along. And maybe you can pass it backwards. Yes. So in this book, every month of the Hebrew month, I added a kavanah, a meditation, and the kavanah is sort of helping us to enter the mood of the month. And we just entered the month of Sivan on Friday, and today is the Shavuot. Everybody has a copy? Great. So this is the kavanah for the month of Sivan. Do we have anyone who's willing to read it? Or maybe...
Marty used to say each morning, I hereby take upon myself the positive mitzvah of love your fellow as yourself. This is an important reminder to have each day, particularly on Shavuot, the holiday on which we celebrate and sanctify our closeness to the divine, to the exalted. It is important to begin with the sanctity of life and the sanctity of the connections between one person and another, since neither can be sustained without the other.
And now when you read it, maybe we can answer us as well, right? When you read each line.
May the one who answered Ruth, who clung to her mother-in-law in love and built a home in Israel.
Answer us as well.
May the one who answered Naomi, who returned with nothing to the fields of Bethlehem to begin a new life.
Answer us as well.
May the one who answered Boaz, whose kindness recognized no boundaries of class or relationship.
Answer us as well.
May the one who answered those who accepted a poor convert, likening her to Rachel and Leah.
Answer us as well.
May the one who answered those who have chosen to join the people of Israel and find shelter under the wings of God's presence.
Answer us as well.
May the one who gave us Torah and made its taste sweet in our mouths and in our hearts.
Answer us as well. Adonai imachem. May the Eternal be with you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to study with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. תודה רבה.